Happy end of April. I don't know if it's just me or if April just passed by really fast. I feel like I blinked and it's already over. It was a good month. I got to go to a lovely tulip farm and I got to experience this Japanese inspired retreat Airbnb place with my friends. And I also read some amazing books this month, which I'm excited to go through today. For my April reading list, I asked my friends and family for recommendations. I asked them what their favorite books were. I got a huge variety, first of all, and I am really glad that I got to read these books because first, I feel like these are books I wouldn't have normally discovered on my own, and two, wouldn't have picked out at like a bookstore. I just feel like I wouldn't have normally found them by myself. But yeah, excited to talk about the 5 books that I read this month. All right, diving into it. So the first book that I read this month was Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Still have the library sticker. This was per recommendation of Ada. She recommended that I go into this blind. I didn't look up anything about this book, like the genre, the plot, the character, etc. I didn't have much context other than reading the brief summary of the plot on the back, which was also very vague. So I truly went into this blind. If I could reenact my emotions while going through and reading this book, it would be like, but yeah, this book surprised me in a good way. I will say the first 60-ish pages, oh yeah, my mom is reading this right now, so that's why there's a bookmark, but the first 60 pages were extremely slow. You just go through dialogues upon dialogue of the protagonist Piranesi just describing the hallways of this house that he's in, and you're like kind of zoning out. But after the first 60-ish pages, it does ramp up, and then you can't put the book down. Oh, at least I couldn't put the book down. The book Piranesi, if I were to give like a very brief summary, follows a protagonist named Piranesi. He lives in this house, a labyrinth-like, maze-like house that is humongous. The like basement floor being like an ocean, and the top floor being filled with clouds, and the middle floor being filled with beautiful mythical statues. And you just wonder, where is he? Why is he there? The entire time you're reading it, and that's what you find out. The imagination and inventiveness of this whole world and where the story takes place was truly incredible. But yeah, I don't want to give away too much because I feel like the beauty of the story is to watch and experience the unraveling of the truth with Piranesi, and it's a bit of creative genius in my opinion. I feel like this book would have been a great book to read in like a book club or even English class. There's so much creative writing decisions in terms of how the sentences were structured, and even the casing of some of the sentences that I had no clue what was going on, but I feel like I would have loved to learn the interpretation that more educated people have on the choice of the writing. There's also so much symbolism and themes. I feel like it would have been just interesting to hear other people's opinions and thoughts around it. If you want a novel that is strange but also enchanting with suspense and slight thrill, you want a desire to know more and kind of like a page turner, then I would recommend that you read this book. Of course, they decide to mow the lawn while I'm recording, so I will resume this video later. I'm back. The lawnmower is no longer mowing, but now the lighting isn't that great. Maybe I can edit it to be okay, but I'm back. The second book I read this month was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This was another recommendation by my friend Ada, and wow, this was so beautiful, so innovative in the way it was written. I have only good things to say about this book, and I feel like everyone should read this book, which is pretty high praise. I did talk about this book in my previous video where I was recommending memoirs, and I didn't give a trigger warning in that video when talking about this book, but I will give a trigger warning for this video talking about this book, that it does involve topics around domestic violence and domestic abuse. So that is just a warning for you readers out there that it does cover those specific topics. In the Dream House is a memoir written by Carmen Maria Machado about her abusive relationship with a woman that she refers to as the woman in the dream house throughout the book. She articulates her experience being in an abusive relationship while also talking about the complexities of abuse in queer relationships, also dissects the mechanisms and cultural representations of abuse. Not only is this a memoir and a telling of her story, but also a commentary of just abuse in different aspects of our society. She kind of goes into different legal proceedings, even incorporates fairy tales and works of film and fiction, and it's really creative the way she interlaces the different aspects of the topic and sheds light on such a difficult topic. I really appreciated how vulnerable Carmen Maria Machado was with us through writing this memoir. You just keep reading with a sinking feeling, knowing what's happening, but because of the lyrical writing and the tropes interlaced with the story, it's just so beautifully written that I couldn't put it down. And because it was so thought-provoking and emotional, I gave this 5 stars, and I feel like everyone should give this book a chance. So on a lighter note, the third book I read this month was A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This was like the perfect, short, uplifting book that I needed to read after Piranesi and In the Dream House. My friend Christine originally recommended me a whole set of different books, and one that I was interested in reading was Cloud Cuckoo Land, but I think it was like 500 pages, and I was just like, this isn't realistic. I can't realistically read all these books in a month. So she lent me A Psalm for the Wild Built. This one was like maybe 150 pages, very short. So I was like, this book is readable within this month. And I'm so glad she lent me this book because I absolutely loved it. I really want to read the second book. The book is just so cozy, and the entire time it felt like I was on the terrain of Hyrule in the game The Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I just kept imagining that I was in the Hyrule wilderness while reading A Psalm for the Wild Built. It gives very much that type of vibe alongside some Ghibli films with those like nature scenes. That's kind of the environment that I felt like I was in while reading the book. A Psalm for the Wild Built takes place in a world where AI/robots played a centralized role in a industrialized and urbanized society. However, one day they grew sentient, they grew consciousness, and then decided to leave human society and live on their own in the wilderness and kind of learn what their purpose was as robots. The story actually follows a protagonist named Dex. He is a gender non-binary tea-serving monk. He travels around different communities in this world to serve tea and just listen to people's misgivings or woes. He's basically like a traveling therapist that serves tea. That's basically the function of a tea monk in this world. It's kind of what I got out of it. He is content in this role for a while, but he feels like something is missing from his life. One day he is traveling to one of the communities to do his like weekly, daily tea serving. And he actually decides to not go to the community and travel further into the wilderness, and he runs into a robot named, what is his name? I think we'll just call him Mosscap for short. We learned that robots have decided to reconnect with human society again and answer the question, like, what do humans need? And that's such a difficult question to answer. This book was overall very easy to read, very easy to pick up. It is very short because it's labeled as a novella. If you're looking for a non-overwhelming short book, this is a good one for you. I really enjoyed reading about a utopian society for once. All the science fiction books I've read are dystopian or dark in nature, but this was more uplifting and cozy. I've heard this book be labeled as cozy cyberpunk or solar punk genre, so that was like an interesting term that I learned. But I really loved reading kind of the commentary on society and the impacts of society on nature, topics revolving around human existence in regards to the concept of enoughness and contentness as human beings. It also covers deeper existential topics like our mortality, because a big thing that the robots decided to do in the society was not to live forever, like update their parts and keep their consciousness forever, but instead they recycle the parts and build new robots from the old robots part. So they're trying to fit the life cycle of other mammals and animals instead of being immortal and not fitting that same life cycle. This was also just a really lovely read, and I also gave this one 5 stars. I really want to reread this first of all, but also really want to recommend this to everyone who hasn't read this already. The 4th book I read this month was She and Her Cat Stories by Makoto Shinkai and Naruki Nagakawa. Excuse my Japanese. This was not recommended to me by my friends or family. I recommended this to myself so I could fit the cozy vibes of the Japanese B&B I was going to, but I was pleasantly surprised. This was a nice and very short collection of short stories. I actually learned halfway through that this is by the same author and director of Kimi no Na wa, also known as Your Name, the Japanese animated movie. So that was fun to just stumble upon. It's mentioned on the back, but I completely missed that. She and Her Cat Stories is basically a collection of interrelated short stories in which 4 women and their feline companions explore the frailty of life, the pain of isolation, and the limits of communication. Very whimsical and moving. I believe this is actually based off of a short film by the same name, She and Her Cat, and then I think they recently made an anime out of it. I originally thought it would be purely from the perspective of the cats, but it actually switched between the human and then the cat's perspective. That was interesting POV switch. I really wanted to love this book because I just love cats. I have 2 cats, you know. I thought I would be biased because of the relation it has to cats, but I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I just feel like because some of the stories were so short, there's just something sort of missing. I enjoyed reading the stories. They were all very charming, but I just feel like they ended too quickly. And maybe that makes sense because they're meant to be short stories, but I felt like there's more to be desired. But it's so short. Maybe if you're looking for something short related to cats, you should check out this book. All right, we've made it to my 5th book of the month, and I have to be honest, I didn't finish this. I am less than halfway through. It's just a very dense book and not that easy to read. The fifth book I am reading this month is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and it is translated by Richard Pevier and Larissa Volokonsky. I was told this is the best translation of Crime and Punishment by my boyfriend, Sammy. I was reading the book and I asked Sammy, I was like, so why is this your favorite book again? And he goes, I don't know. I would have to reread it.
Huh?
You told me this is your favorite book, but you don't know why it's your favorite book? Anyway, it was very difficult to get through the first 50 pages. After reading books in the modern language and speak, it was kind of hard to dive into just older English language, and it is translated. I'm not reading this in Russian, but it's just still hard to digest. There's just so much going on and so many characters being introduced in the first couple chapters. I was just a little overwhelmed, but once the crime happened, I did get a little invested, and now I'll be able to get through the next few chapters a little more easily. I can see why it's a classic. I kind of wish I read this in an English class or in a book club, because I feel like there is so much happening that I wish I could dive into or discuss with like a group, just in terms of each character and their flaws and their pride and the themes of like poverty and also human nature, as he has committed this atrocious crime of murdering someone. I don't think that's a secret. That's, I think, quite obviously on the back. But I just think it would be a really good book to analyze just the psychological nature of this man, the protagonist, whose name I'm not going to butcher on this video because I don't know Russian. I'm not gonna even attempt to pronounce his name. But yes, I have not finished this book. I'm currently reading this, but I feel like I'll be able to finish this book in the next week. This is the last book that I've started and have not yet finished. Those were my April reads. 2 out of 5. I've rated 5 stars, so I would say it was pretty successful reading month, just in terms of what type of books I've read, but also like the quality of the books. So I gotta give huge shout out to my friends Ada and Christine for, you know, giving such good recommendations. All right, well, thanks for listening to me ramble again. I hope you pick up some of these books because they were truly chef's kiss. Thanks so much for joining me today, and see you on the next one. Bye.